In 1987, Eddie Murphy returned as Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop 2, a fun movie packed with plenty of action and plenty of laughs. This time, after Foley's dear friend, Captain Bogomil, is brutally injured, the Detroit cop must once again travel to the glamour and glitz of Beverly Hills, where also once again he teams up with Rosewood and Taggart, where the three cops must investigate the sinister Alphabet crimes. Now, as time has passed, the attitude towards Beverly Hills Cop 2 has been, yeah, it's okay, I guess. It has its moments, but it's not as good as the original. Nope, it just can't live up to that first film. But that popular opinion aside, I actually really love Beverly Hills Cop 2, and it might just actually be my favourite Beverly Hills Cop movie. So today, I'm going to try and figure out just why I possibly like Beverly Hills Cop 2 that little bit more than the original one, by looking into 10 things that you didn't know about Beverly Hills Cop 2. Spoilers, that turtle, Big Al, the one where Axel wants to know where his junk is, was actually a lady turtle. So, let's check it out. Number 10. Axel Foley was originally meant to return in a TV series. So in 1984, the original Beverly Hills Cop was released, and it was a massive success, bringing in $316 million in the box office. In fact, in 1984, Beverly Hills Cop made more money than Ghostbusters. That's how insanely successful it was. So naturally, its distributors, Paramount Pictures, knew that they had some hot real estate on their hands and wanted to make some more of that sweet, sweet Beverly Hills Cop money. However, their original idea was to follow up with a TV show. Yep, Axel Foley on the small screen, not being able to be too violent or rude, and no doubt not being able to swear due to TV regulation standards of that time. Seriously, what a terrible idea! Thankfully, Eddie Murphy was wearing his sensible hat, where he simply said, nope, he did not want to do a TV series. Supposedly, after starring in Saturday Night Live, he was kind of done with television and wanted to move on to movies, where the project then went into production as a sequel movie. Yep, Murphy was up for a sequel, just not a TV show. Number 9. The director was hired thanks to Top Gun. Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, who produced the first Beverly Hills Cop movie, were returning once again to produce the sequel. However, the first movie's director, Martin Brest, wouldn't return, probably because at that time he was getting ready to make Midnight Run. So Paramount turned to another hugely successful movie that they had recently distributed, Top Gun, which not only Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer also produced, but it was also directed by Ridley Scott's brother, Tony Scott. And I guess that when it came to Top Gun, Scott took their breath away as Paramount offered him to direct Beverly Hills Cop 2, and he accepted. Scott had an interesting career, as his first feature film was The Hunger, which is, I guess you could say, an art house vampire movie starring David Bowie. But it was filming a Saab commercial that would really see Scott's career skyrocket, as thanks to this commercial, Paramount hired him to direct Top Gun, and thus then subsequently Beverly Hills Cop 2. And Scott would team up with Simpson and Bruckheimer again, where he would go on to direct Days of Thunder, Crimson Tide, and Enemy of the State. In fact, Tony Scott actually directed quite a few badass movies, and he doesn't get anywhere near as much recognition than he deserves. Number 8. Beverly Hills Cop Abroad. In the early days of production, it was decided to take the action out of the sunshine palm trees of Beverly Hills and to set the action in London and Paris. Which I don't know. I mean, the movie after all is called Beverly Hills Cop, not London Cop or Paris Cop. I guess there was going to be all kinds of cultural shenanigans ensuing, where we would see Axel Foley go on an action-packed adventure in Paris and London. Thankfully, Eddie Murphy didn't want to film outside America, so it was decided to keep it like the first movie by returning to Beverly Hills and once again seeing Rosewood, Taggart, and Bogomil in a new story focusing on the alphabet crimes. In fact, Murphy himself co-wrote the story. But I'm glad that the action stayed in Beverly Hills, as in the first movie, the location itself was almost kind of like a character. It gave it its identity. That, and had it been set in London and Paris, we no doubt would have had the funny comical scenes of Axel Foley having comical hijinks at Buckingham Palace, along with a suspenseful action scene with him at the Eiffel Tower. You know they totes would have done that. After all, it was already done in National Lampoon's Europe Vacation too. Number 7. Beverly Hills Cop 2 has a lot of famous cameos. Yeah, there are actually quite a few famous faces who turn up in Beverly Hills Cop 2. Some of them are just in really short scenes. I don't know if it's because the first movie was so successful and everyone just really wanted to appear in the sequel, or if the production just grabbed whoever just so happened to be walking around the set during the shoot and just threw them in the movie. Some of these famous faces include Hugh Hefner, Dean Stockwell, Gilbert Gottfried, and Chris Rock in his first movie role. Yep, baby, Chris Rock had now started his journey and was truly on his way to getting slapped by Will Smith. There are, of course, returning cast members, including Judge Reinhold as Rosewood, John Ashton as Taggart, Ronnie Cox as Bogomil, Paul Reiser as Friedman, and Gil Hill as Inspector Todd. And not forgetting, of course, the movie's villains, Bridget Nielsen as Carla Fry, and Jürgen Prochnow as Maxwell Dent. Number 6. Filming. The shoot for Beverly Hills Cop 2 started in November 1986 and lasted till March 1987, with the filming taking place around Los Angeles, naturally. The scene where Rosewood opens up the trunk of the car to reveal that he has some huge guns was actually a cheeky reference to co-producer Don Simpson, as supposedly while making the first movie, Don Simpson would show off a gun collection that he had in the trunk of his car. Ronnie Cox this time round has a smaller role than he does in the first movie, with him really only appearing at the start of the film and then at the very end. Now, Ronnie Cox was to have a larger role in Beverly Hills Cop 2, but it got cut down due to him filming RoboCop at the same time. Hey, they should have just combined the two to Beverly Hills RoboCop. According to IMDb, during the making of the movie, director Tony Scott and Bridget Nielsen had an affair. But that's IMDb, so take that with a grain of salt. According to the movie's editor, Billy Weber, it was while filming Beverly Hills Cop 2 that Eddie Murphy's prima donna side was starting to come out, where there were some behavioural issues during the shoot. For example, he was always late for filming and never on time. In fact, this movie really needed Eddie Murphy. So much so, for returning as Axel Foley, Murphy was given $8 million out of the movie's $27 million budget. But despite some of the issues that took place during the filming of the movie, Murphy actually got along famously with the movie's director, Tony Scott. Look, if the stories are true, then at that time, Murphy was young and a huge star. Without a doubt, one of the biggest stars in the world. And well, I guess no one's perfect. Now, I wouldn't know, but maybe sometimes all that fame and idolization can go to your head. Who knows? Number 5. The Cobra Connection. So there's a scene in Beverly Hills Cop 2 where while at the Rosewood character's place of residence, we see a poster on his wall for the movie Cobra. Yeah, I think this is a joke that Rosewood likes big tough guy action movies, with the scene where he has all the guns being the payoff to that joke. But what's interesting about using the poster for Cobra is the 1986 Sylvester Stallone movie is kind of Beverly Hills Cop's twin. You see, when the first Beverly Hills Cop was in production, Sylvester Stallone was on board to play the Axel character, but he wanted the movie to be a straight-faced, serious action movie, complete with a romantic love interest. He didn't want any comedy, so he left the production, and furthermore, Sylvester Stallone took all the ideas and plans that he had for Beverly Hills Cop and used them to make Cobra. So Cobra is kind of Beverly Hills Cop if it was made by Stallone, or Beverly Hills Cop the Stallone version. Naturally, Cobra did make money, but it wasn't embraced like Beverly Hills Cop, and it did get critically panned. So I can't help but feel like putting the poster here in Beverly Hills Cop 2 is kind of a cheeky jab at the movie. In addition to that, Cobra also stars Bridget Nielsen, who plays the villain in Beverly Hills Cop 2, and she was also married to Sylvester Stallone at that time. Oh my god, do you know what this means? Well, if you do, please comment below and let me know, because I have no idea. Maybe that's why they got a divorce. Sylvester Stallone was like, I told you, don't go starring in Beverly Hills Cop 2, you know, that's what says the rules. Number 4, deleted scenes. So there is one infamous deleted scene where Foley, Rosewood and Taggart break into the gun club, where lo and behold, there are security lasers, in which the three heroes have to get through without setting off the lasers, and poor Taggart has to keep blowing out cigar smoke so they can see the lasers. Director Tony Scott claims that this was really the only scene that didn't make it into the film, and that it was cut for pacing reasons, but also because it was felt that the whole idea of security lasers was just too glossy, like as if it took the movie into more fantastical territories, with it being pulled too far away from reality, with Scott adding that back then movies didn't really feature technology like security lasers, even though they have been done to death since. Note, back then when making Beverly Hills Cop 2, this was a new concept, and I guess a concept that those involved weren't really ready to explore yet. Judge Reinhold further added that filming that scene was actually a lot of fun. Also in the original script, there was a character who ended up getting deleted called Lucy, who was to also be a cop and Foley's partner, as well as his love interest. But yeah, the character was removed. Also in the early script, Carla was called Trish. You know, just putting it out there. Number 3, more jokes had to be filmed. So as mentioned, the movie that got Tony Scott the job of directing Beverly Hills Cop 2 was Top Gun. Now say what you want to say about Top Gun, it may be many wonderful things, however one thing it is not is a comedy. It is an action spectacle, and because Tony Scott wasn't a comedy director but an action one, the first cut of Beverly Hills Cop 2 was actually more of a balls to the wall action movie. Once again, according to editor Billy Weber, after the first screening of Beverly Hills Cop 2, there was something of a panic, where producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer realized that Beverly Hills Cop 2 isn't a comedy, it's a serious action movie. I mean, it wasn't Scott's fault. Once again, he's a serious action director. So if you're going to hire Tony Scott, the director of Top Gun, you're going to get what Tony Scott does. So to add more humour and recapture the spirit of the first movie, new scenes had to be refilmed with extra added dialogue in order to include more jokes and humour. And so rather than being a heavy action movie, Beverly Hills Cop 2 was now more of a comedy. And it works, as I've always found Beverly Hills Cop 2 to be hilarious. The behind the scenes as far as this movie's script goes does seem to be a little chaotic, as supposedly Don Simpson used his power and influence he had at Paramount Pictures to get writer Larry Ferguson temporarily suspended from writing a movie that he was currently working on, which was The Presidio, in order to get him to make rewrites to the script for Beverly Hills Cop 2. Number 2, the music was insanely successful. So when it came to the music of Beverly Hills Cop 2, supposedly director Tony Scott wanted Hans Zimmer to score the movie. But the studio rejected this idea, as they wanted German composer Harold Faltermeyer to return as he scored the first movie, including the famous pop synth Axel Foley theme. But despite this, Zimmer would score future movies of Scott's, including Days of Thunder, True Romance, and Crimson Tide. The first Beverly Hills Cop movie had great success with the song The Heat Is On. So naturally, the heat was on again to replicate that success with another hit pop song, which is where we get the song Shakedown. Now Glenn Frey, who sang The Heat Is On, was going to come back to sing Shakedown, but he lost his voice. Well, that was careless of him. I sure hope he found it again eventually. So singer Bob Seger was hired to sing Shakedown, and the song would go on to be a massive success. Not only did the song reach the #1 spot on the Billboard charts, but it was also nominated for a Golden Globe and an Oscar for being Best Original Song. So this song, Shakedown, was a big deal, and may have actually been more successful than the movie itself. Incidentally, my very first introduction to the song Shakedown was hearing it used in that really weird Nintendo cartoon, Captain N the Game Master, which is kind of disappointing when you think about it. Number 1, the biggest opening weekend of 1987. Beverly Hills Cop 2 was released in May 1987, and it would make over $276 million in the box office on a $27 million budget, so it was very financially successful. So much so, it had the highest opening of 1987, and it would also become the 3rd highest domestic movie of that year, behind Fatal Attraction and Three Men and a Baby. Now, I think there was some disappointment that it didn't reach the movie's first box office numbers of $316 million. But if $276 million is a failure, then that's the kind of failure that I want to strive for and wouldn't mind happening. Sadly, the critics weren't really on board with Beverly Hills Cop 2. There were many reviews that basically summed it up to simply just not being as good as the original, with it being labelled as mediocre and a clone of the first movie, only not as good and thus not justifying its existence. The only critic who was really on board with Beverly Hills Cop 2 was one from the Washington Post, with a review stating it's as good as the original, if not better. Now, I think that over the years, Beverly Hills Cop 2 has been regarded as that Beverly Hills Cop movie that is pretty good, but just not as good as the original. And it currently has 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, excuse me? Is Beverly Hills Cop 2 really that bad? Some of the hot garbage that gets released today gets scores that are in the 90s, but Beverly Hills Cop 2 gets a measly 46%? What the arse burgers is this? Look, I know that this might rile some people up the wrong way, but I absolutely adore Beverly Hills Cop 2. All that magic that was in the first movie is back, and it's in spades. And I feel like this movie represents a time when Eddie Murphy was at the height of his powers, where his talents and charisma seemed limitless. And yes, controversial opinion, but I do like it a bit better than the original. You alright there, mate? I put it in the same category as Problem Child 2 and Child's Play 2, in that it feels like they took what worked in the original and perfected it and gave it a bit more polish. Made it sparkle a little bit more. I find the movie to be a really good time. It has great action and some truly funny moments. So if you're a Beverly Hills Cop fan, please go back and give it another viewing with an open mind. You may be pleasantly surprised. Yeah, I love this movie, I really do. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe it goes against the Beverly Hills Cop code, and that the first movie should be everyone's favourite, but I can't help it, and I may as well be honest. I always just have a really great time with this movie. Anyway, I'm Minty. And seriously, we've had a Beverly Hills Cop, and we've had a Beverly Hills Ninja. We need a Beverly Hills Minty. Whatever that means. See ya!